So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how FWG funds itself. Now, there's been lots of kind of questions about this, I suppose, which is one of the reasons for making the video. But the main thing is, because we're getting so near to the battery, I'm finding a lot of people yelling, fraud, snake oil, he's trying to cheat us, run away! And that really amuses me because, of course, throughout the development of the battery, which I've basically just been sharing with you, I haven't been asking for funding or money or investors. In fact, when people say, how can I invest? I write back saying, you can't. So I'm not quite sure where the fraud actually is, if you like. But it did raise a number of issues that people are probably thinking about, and that is, where do we get our money from? Because obviously, we've spent a considerable amount of money doing this. Now, we get our money from a number of different sources. Me, Gary and Steve self-fund it to a great deal, so a lot of the money comes from me, Gary and Steve. We do sell the odd product. You might remember we sold a conductive ink with about, I think it was 10 ohms, 20 ohms a square per mil, something like that. And we sell the Echo Foam, of course. Now, I have books that I sell through Smashwords, and people buy the books. There is, of course, the advertising that we get through the YouTube channel, so when people have an advert or click through in the advert, we earn money from that as well. And all of those are kind of not inconsiderable things that bring money into FWG so we can continue our work. Another source of funding actually is donation. A lot of people will donate things, which is really, really cool and really well received. And these donations can range. So there's one chap who gives us, and I think it's just awesome, he gives us £5 a month into our PayPal account just because that's what he wants to do, and he gives us this £5 a month and it comes in every time. There's another chap who's a really nice guy, actually donated a microscope, a full microscope, and every now and then, like for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and just when it occurs to him, he sends us a hamper. These are just amazing gifts. So a hamper will arrive and it'll have quite a nice selection. The team gets together and we have a very nice lunch, and then we divide up what's left and take it home. It's an awesome donation. So we get all kinds of things donated. Another chap, a good friend of ours, donated the KDEX, the KDEX 8000. Now, that is a £16,000 machine, and he just donated it. And that's another awesome gift, and we're very grateful for it. So we get lots of donations, both of money and of in kind, and just kindnesses, and all kinds of stuff brings a fair bit in just from donation. So we do run a whole load of other things that bring money into FWG. It kind of suggests to me there's a lot of support for what we're doing, and when I read the things about snake oil, I just laugh. Because we also run an open lab. Now, everybody's welcome to come and visit the lab. If you come and visit the lab, what I tend to do is have a chat, we have a coffee, and then we can go downstairs into the lab and I make a battery with you. And that's really a fun thing for me to do, because everybody who makes the battery, obviously, just can't believe what they're seeing. We paint a bit of ink onto a bit of paper, and we charge it up, and then we run a motor. Normally I charge it for about 10 seconds or so, and the motor runs for about 10 minutes, and we do about half a dozen of those just so you can see it. You can see it and handle it and feel it and get a good understanding of it. Of course, coming to the lab and doing something like that requires effort, whereas sitting on the internet shouting snake oil requires no effort at all. So I'm not surprised people do such things. But anybody who wants to come to the lab and make a battery is more than welcome to come. We hide nothing at all. So we're very open about what we do. We try to be as open as we possibly can. Of course, there are some things we can't be open about. I mean, the battery industry is worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So some of the stuff that we've got, we don't say. And I'm sure you can understand why we wouldn't do that, and we don't. We share what we can share. We try to encourage you to experiment, and there's a lot of really good experimenters out there making amazing strides. Kev is one guy that I think is awesome. He's a very solid guy. He does these very long videos where he explains the ins and outs of what he's doing. But he's doing some amazing things. I get written to by people all the time who are doing that sort of stuff. And of course, that's the point of the channel, to encourage you to experiment. Now, of course, we are developing products all of the time. And we do sell those products. Now, occasionally it occurs to me to think about doing a Kickstarter. But when I want to hold up my trousers, what I want to use is a belt, braces, and a bit of string. I want to be 110% sure that something's going to work. There is only me and Steve, remember, working on these batteries. So when people say, hey, you're taking a long time, well, what do you expect? There's two of us And we're working away, and we've been working away quite quickly, actually. Actually, in those terms, in research terms, it's a very short time. We don't have the money or the resources to throw 40 scientists and their teams at researching a particular battery. Even if we did, that would still take 5 to 10 years to come out. It's just me and Steve working solidly away at things, and so these things are actually happening really quickly in those terms. Now, equally, we won't let anything out of here until we're 110% sure that that thing is going to work. And you know what we're planning. We're going to put our battery into the Twizy and drive it from Janagros to Land's End, a journey of about 1,000 miles. We'll be pretty sure our battery works by about then. When we're sure our battery works, then we'll look for releasing it onto the market, making products, getting people to beta test. All that sort of stuff will happen after we're sure. That does mean, obviously, that every now and then we need to do something in order to raise money. And we don't go out there saying, please invest in our company for our battery. That's not what we're about. What we do is we get something we're 110% sure of, and we'll sell it. Now, I did do an Indiegogo campaign on conductive ink, and that's what I'm going to do in the very near future, probably in a couple of weeks or so. Sometimes I talk about Indiegogo campaigns or Kickstart campaigns, and as I'm thinking about doing it. And yes, sometimes I am thinking about doing it, but this one I'm definitely going to do. And the reason I'm going to do is because the new ink that we've developed, and you might have seen it when I was showing you the current collectors on various batteries and supercapacitors. We're using this ink as the current collectors for it. It's a really good ink as far as I'm concerned, and this is it here. I'm going to do a separate video on some of the unusual properties of it, but this weird metallic shiny stuff is actually made out of graphite, and it's got an amazing conductivity of about 1.6 ohms per square, which is really very cool. It has some unusual properties that are quite fascinating. I'm putting gloves on so I don't get my hands too dirty. It's actually just a carbon. Here's a lump of it, and this lump of it is diamagnetic. What that means is when I put that on a magnetic field, it sets up a magnetic field opposite to the applied field inside of itself, and it will float. And I'll do a video on that showing the diamagnetism of our new ink, which is really bizarre and very interesting. It does suggest that there's some kind of delocalization of electrons going on in there, but obviously that's something that we'd have to investigate and have a look at. Now, when we make the ink, that's what it looks like, is this kind of paste. So I'm probably, and that's why I'm wearing the gloves incidentally, I'm probably going to mix that with some kind of binder so that it will actually stick, and we'll produce that in pens and pots, and probably put it into kits as well. So there'll be a capacitor kit, electronics kit. This stuff should be able to cut glass, so there'll be a glass cutting kit, that kind of thing. But we'll go into that a bit further, and I'll do another video on some of the weird properties of this ink. Anyway, I thought that would be of interest to you, to have an insight into how it is that we actually get our funding and where this money comes from, so that we can continue to work on our FWG projects. I hope that was of interest to you, and thank you very much for watching.